Hey, what's up YouTube? My name is Jimmy Walker. I'm going to show you some very basic modeling tips for making a video game. Today I figure we'd just start with making something simple like a cell phone. You see a lot of these newer games where they use cell phones, and I'm going to show you how to make a very detailed cell phone. And I'll explain about polycount and as well as how to do the texture mapping. So the first thing you need if you're going to be modeling something like that is you're going to have a 3D program. You can use Blender, Maya, 3ds Max. You can use any of those. The modeling principles behind them are going to be the same. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing you need whenever you're modeling anything is you're going to need reference images. So here I'm just going to look for a cell phone that looks, something that looks kind of cool to add into. So we have the Samsung right here. Now this will actually be a really good image to use, but I want to see if I can try and find something that also has the home screen for the texture map later on. So what I can do is I can go ahead and save this image, and I'm actually going to just save it on my desktop, create a new folder, and I'm going to call this tutorial. So inside we'll call this one ref image, and sometimes you'll have to change this over if you're saving it as an image. So we'll go ahead and click save, and I must have save image as. Okay, so that's not a problem. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and just open it in a new window, or open image in a new tab. And I'll go in here and then try to save the image. And it's probably going to fight me tooth and nail. And yeah, that's just beautiful. Okay, so I'm not able to save this image, but a lot of times this is what I'll do is I'll just look for an image that I can save. So like I'm going to see if I can do this one. And I'll click save image. We'll click on reference, and then we'll open it up, make sure. Okay, so this one will work. So as you can see right here, the back is actually partially covered, but we know it's a Galaxy S6. So what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm just going to type in Galaxy S6 and see if I can find one that has a front and back where they're completely separated. Like this one is perfect. The resolution down here, 600 by 522, is a little low. So I'm going to see if I can find one that's just a little bit higher. And doesn't look like I'm going to strike gold. So we'll just go with this one. It's not going to hurt anything. And the nice thing about this one is it even has the side images, which will give us that much more detail. So I'm going to go ahead and save this image. Save it under reference image. And save it. So after that is what we'll do is we'll open up our 3D application. And we'll have to go in and import the image plane. Now, different 3D programs will have different options to do this. In Maya, you can just simply, whenever you're in the perspective, all I'm doing is tapping spacebar, and then I'll hover the mouse over whichever view I need. In this case, we'll go ahead and do it over the top. And so, once it's over the top, I'll go up here to View, Import Image, and then I'll find the file that I saved. In this case, it's called tutorial, and I'll click on reference image, and I'll open that up. Now, if for some odd reason you can't do this in your 3D application, the other way of doing it is you can actually look at the file size. So I'm just going to go ahead and show this in folder, and as you can see, 600 by 522. So this is the other thing you can do, is simply create a polyplane, and under the size, we know it's 600 by 522. And this is the other way you can do it, is this just creates a size. Now to actually apply it is what you can do is go in here and assign a new rendering shader to it, and then under color you can just simply attach the file to it. So these are the two options you have. And right now it's not showing up because you have to actually turn on the textures for it to show the textures. But these are the two ways you can do it. Either way is fine. It's really just a reference image. Now once I do this, one thing I like to do is under my main viewport, I like to kind of pull it back a little bit. If I create other images, I'll actually move it from where it's zeroed out to behind, or I'll move it back this way. Now, a lot of 3D applications, the simple undo key is Control Z, so that's how I was able to move this back like so. So once we have our image in place, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a cube. Now, as what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the general size of it, about like that. Oh, come on. And then I'll move this up to right about there, and I'll move this down. Now, this doesn't have to be like super perfect or anything. It just has to be close. The closer you can get it, the better, because then it's just going to have that extra bit of detail that's been added to it. So I'm just going to model this over like so, and then I'm going to turn on transparency. So now we have these little corners right here. Actually, I think I'm going to move this down just a little bit. There we go. Now I can sleep good at night. So if we were to do a smooth preview, this is what we would get. A nice big egg, if that's what you want to call it. So what I'll do is I'll actually go to the edge loop tool, and I'll create one right about here, and here, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So now, as you can see, whenever I smooth it out, now we have a more rounded surface, as you can see. And to actually get this where I want it, is what I can do is I can select these, and I will just simply scale these in just a little bit. Now, if you want, and you want to add that extra detail, the other option, the other way about doing this is you can take these and move these down to about here. Oh, I don't want to do that because it's still smooth. So what you can do is you can take these whenever it's in basically default mode. You can scale these in just a little bit, come back up here, scale these down. So whenever you smooth it, as a smooth preview, as you can see now, it actually follows a contour. And then all you have to do is just come back in here, move this down just a hair, and move this up. So I think I can sleep at night. I think I can accept that as, something that I would consider passable. So now we have to get the thickness. To get the thickness is what I'll do. You can either rotate this block, or what you can do is you can duplicate this image and simply rotate it a little bit to find out which axis. In this case, it's a z-axis, so I'll rotate it 90. And then I'll go over here. Oops. There we go. I'll go over here, and as you can see, it's actually covering that, so I need to move it back. So now whenever I'm right here, I can turn on the transparency. I can move this up, and I will simply scale it down like so. Now, if I was going to do this as a real high resolution image, I would actually add this edge that goes all the way across here. Considering this is going to be for a video game, I'm not going to go too heavy on that, but I will add an edge loop right about here. So when we smooth it, as you can see now, this follows the contour. So the next thing I'll need to do is, I don't necessarily have to add the camera right here, which is what this piece is that's protruding out. And I'm not too worried about the buttons. If I was going to add the buttons, I would simply just create a polycube right about here and scale these in, like so. And the way I'm able to switch back and forth between the translate, the rotate, and the scale is, in Maya it's W, and for the rotate it's E, and for the scale it's R. So that's how I'm switching back and forth between those really quick. A lot of applications will give you an option to be able to actually change that up. So right here, I'll actually create the little button right here, and to move in on where you're at. If you're using Blender, you can set the hotkeys up real similar to Maya. So to frame in on that, you just press F, and that'll take you right up to it. So if I were to smooth this, once again, you can see that it gives you the same thing, where it just kind of rounds out. You can simply fix that by adding a few edge loops in. So like you could add one here, here, and then go up like so, and down like that. And to cut down on the poly counts is what you can do is just simply go in here and delete those edges. So now this is what you're left with, which gives you a real nice smooth look. I'm going to be looking at the tries right here, which is triangles, and I'm actually going to try and make this phone itself less than 200. So what I want to do now is I actually want to smooth this out. And in order to smooth it, you can just, in Maya, you can click on this little icon right here. You can see 3 squares, and then right here you'll see 16 squares, and it's orange. The other way of doing that is whenever you have your object selected, you go up here to Mesh, and they actually have the smooth option right down here. So those are the 2 ways of smoothing an object. Now, one thing about these phones is the screen actually kind of folds down a little bit. And to do that, is what I'll do is I'll select these edges, and I'll actually move these down to about here. And then I'll select these edges, like so, and I'll pull those down just a little bit. And then lastly, I'll select these edges. Now, when in Maya and a lot of other 3D applications, here's how I'm able to select multiple ones. If you double click on a edge loop, it'll actually highlight that entire edge loop unless it's on a corner. So like right here, this is on a corner, that's why it's not doing that. And as you can see, this one, it highlights it all the way around. And it's just simply double clicking. And I'm able to click on multiple edge loops by simply holding down Shift and then double clicking again. And that's how I'm doing that. If you select an extra loop, all you have to do is just hold down Control and click on that one you just selected, and now I'll deselect it. And it's the same thing if you need to deselect an entire edge loop. Just hold down Control and double click again, and it'll deselect it. So no big deal there. So basically, I need to get rid of these bottom edges. And so what I can do is I can go into the side view right here and just Control Select or Control Deselect by holding down Control. And so now I'm left with this. And I can actually move this down just a hair, and then I'll go back in here. I will deselect these, and I'll deselect these, and then I'll pull this down just a little bit. So, yeah, it looks pretty good. So now the next thing I need to do, because right now we're actually at 336 triangles, which, if you're making a video game, that's a little excessive for something that's so small, and something that's not really going to be needed for a whole lot of detail. So is what you can do, we can see that from here to here, this is flat. So the first thing we can do is actually delete this whole edge loop. Now, if you look at the triangles and faces and the edges and vertices, if I just press delete on the keyboard, some of those do go down, but the vertices stay the same. Is what you have to actually do is you have to delete the vertices and edges attached to the selection. So by clicking on that, as you can see now, all those actually drop. The next thing I'll need to do is I'll actually want to select all 3 of these and do the same thing. Now, you saw that kind of deformed it a little bit. That is actually okay because of the fact that there's not really a whole lot of difference in the detail of what we're building here, or what we're designing for the video game. The last thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and select this one. I'm going to do the same thing. And I think I'm actually going to select these edges right here. I'm going to pull these out just a little bit. And I'm going to do the same with this selection right here. I'm going to pull this out just a hair. About like that. So now we have a basic phone. And I'm actually going to select these and pull this up just a little bit as well. So we'll give it more of a, there we go, gives it more of that little screen that I'm looking for, where it actually kind of like drops off the edge. If you want, you can continue on messing with this. I'm actually going to make one last little tweak right here. And then I'll pull this out. I'm thinking about like that should be good. I see right here we're actually dipping below that, so I'm actually going to pull that up just a little bit. So once you have done that, now we have our nice little, I guess you'd say beveled screen. Now we have to create a texture map. And so to create a texture map, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually take the image that I downloaded and I'll start manipulating that in Photoshop. So if we open this up and we open it with Photoshop, we'll go ahead and pull this up. So let's say we can't use the same name because that's actually copyright infringement, but however there are other things you can do. Grand Theft Auto is actually a very good example of this, where they'll change something like a Chrysler 300 to a Kuruma. So you can use those same basic principles. You can use real close similarities, but you can't use the exact same thing. So let's just change the name to Sam. And is what I'll do with the background selected. I'll actually go ahead and select Sam right here. And I'll hold down Control C and then press, while I'm still holding down Control, I'll press V. Now, Control C will copy your selection, Control V will paste your selection, and all I'll do is just move it over like that. So then the last thing we have is this G, and this G has got to go. And in order to do that, once again, you select the background. I'm going to select this little grayed out area right here, Control C, V. And I'm actually just going to move this over like so. So now it matches this right here. Now you can see this borderline edge right here, and that's rather unacceptable. So what I do is I'll go in here with the eraser tool. I'll drop the opacity down, anywhere between 15 to 25%, depending on what kind of item I'm working with. But then you'll select the layer you just moved. In this case, it's listed as layer 1, I believe. And so now I'll just go in with the eraser tool. Let me go ahead and merge these layers because I'm not sure which one I did. Normally I'll mark these, but for tutorial purposes, I'm just trying to show you real quickly on how to do this. So once I have that layer selected, as you can see, I'm just kind of clicking, and I'm actually just trying to smooth this out just a little bit. Now, what I'll do is I'll smooth that all the way around. And I actually got part of the M, so I need to back that off a little bit. Now with this layer selected, I actually need to go ahead and duplicate the layer. And I'll hit OK. I'm going to move this down and get rid of the Sam in it. So like that. Gotta get rid of my box. And then I'm going to move this over like this. I'm going to duplicate the layer again. And I'll move this over one more time. Now, if you know where your previous layer was, you can actually click that and it'll automatically select it for you. After that, I'll go back into my erase tool and just do that one time. I'll click on this layer out here and go into my erase tool. Not that one, my erase tool. There we go. I am happy again. And I'll just kind of go over that a little bit more. So now we have our Sam phone. The next thing I'll need to do is change the name up here, and it's the exact same thing. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and merge these layers. Merge layers. I'm going to go and change the name to back layer. So with the background selected, I'm going to do the same thing that I just went over. I'm going to change the name from Samsung to Sam, Control C, V. I'm going to move this over right about there. And once again, we have the same thing where the G is protruding a little bit. So I'll take this layer right here. And if the background's not selected and you hit Control C, it'll let you know that it can't do anything. So all you have to do is just go down here, click on whatever part you're trying to select, and then you can try it. So Control C, V, I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to go into my Magic Erase tool, doing the same thing that I did before. So then I'll click on this layer. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. Okay. And then I'll move it out just a little bit, and then I'll duplicate it again. Okay. And I'll move it out. Oops. Move it out just a little bit more. And then I'll take my eraser, and it's the exact same process. I just go over it like so. Let me go to the middle layer right here, and same thing. And then I'll go back to the previous layer. I believe it's this one. There we go. So one thing you'll notice is that we have this pixelation up here. And an easy way around that is to find an area that's not as pixelated. And you can just simply take that, Control C, Control V. I'm going to move this down to about here. That looks like it lines up. And then I'll go ahead and duplicate that layer. And I'm going to move that down here. So now that I've done that, is what I can do is I can actually erase that out, or the other option I have is I can just completely delete it. And in this case, I can just select it and hit delete, providing that the correct layer is indeed selected. And I actually need to go one more pixel down, right about there. And then on this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select all the way up to about here and hit delete. And so now, whenever I zoom out, I'm just going to go and right click and fit on screen. That's what you have, Sam. So now the next thing I want to do is, I don't think we really need this back part. It's a little extra detail. But once again, if you're trying to change it up, then you're trying to keep it as quote-unquote original as possible. So I'm going to actually select the back layer, and I will select this group of pixels. I'm going to say right about here. I'm going to hit Control C and V. I'm going to move that down, and then I'm going to duplicate the layer. And I'll do the same thing over that. And once again, Magic Erase tool, just basically trying to blend the edges. So this way it doesn't this way you can't really tell that anything was ever manipulated or changed or anything like that. While I'm doing this, one other thing that I think would be good to talk about, whenever you're downloading textures, like me, is what I'll do is I'm not doing very good tonight. If I'm going to create textures for anything, a lot of times I'll actually use photos of things I already have. And one advantage of doing that is that by doing so, I'm making sure that I own the rights to that. Another option you have is to actually, like if you go to a, I don't know, like some kind of store or something, or a hotel, ask if you can take pictures of tiles or like granite surfaces or anything they may have there, and just see if it's okay with them. And this way you can make your own texture maps. In a later tutorial, I'll talk about making like sand textures, and I'll explain how I go about doing the process on that. So right now I'm just actually moving the camera over a little bit, because once again I'm trying to keep this as unique as possible. And so moving the camera over is just another little thing you can do to kind of add to that. So now I need to get rid of the camera that's in the center, and by doing so, all I have to do is just, I did not make that wide enough, my bad. Well, I couldn't because of this little thing. So if you run into something like this, all you have to do is just select a smaller patch like so, and Control CV, and then just kind of move it down. I'm going to move it right about here where it's just barely over it, and then we'll just start duplicating the layer. Now whenever you have a lot of them, you can actually select multiple layers, right click, duplicate layers, and then you can actually move multiple layers at a time. And it's just something that will actually kind of save a little bit of time. The only problem comes into the only problem with doing this is that you can actually run into a problem where it's kind of like, oh crap, what layer am I on? And so that's just something to kind of be a little aware of. If it's overwhelming, you can actually turn off certain layers and just start working with it like so. And so like right now I just turn off the background layer so I could select the proper layer for blending. And I did not want to do that because of the fact that I have this set to 100. So I'm going to move this down to about 14% and just start kind of working my way around. And a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'm really just kind of checking the edges and everything and making sure that those are just, you know, nice and uniform. so that whenever I do zoom out or something, I'm not like, oh man, that looks like crap. Because I'm like, realistically, when you play a video game, you don't want something to look like crap. You want something that's just immaculate looking. And even though this is a cell phone, it's good to kind of put a little bit of time into it just to make sure that, if you're working for a company or you're doing this for a school project, that whoever you're doing this for is going to be impressed with the fact that you took your time to make sure that everything looks right, everything looks good, and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, and I'm going to move it right about here. So when I turn on the background and I go back to the magnifying glass down here, I'll just right click, fit on screen. So there we go, now the camera's off to the side. Very simple. So the last thing we'll need to do is we'll go up here to save as. I always save these as PNG images. You can realistically save them as JPEGs or whatever. That doesn't really matter. So once we've done that, we can go back in here to Maya, and you can texture map so many ways. You have planar mapping, which essentially just creates a flat plane and applies it. And then you have cylindrical mapping, which basically creates like a tunnel all the way around, or a tube. You have spherical mapping, which will create I guess you'd say just a sphere or a dome around it. And then you have automatic mapping. I'm going to click on automatic mapping, and then I'll probably go back to doing planar mapping, just so you can kind of see and get an idea. Now, with this being a box image, realistically, 3 planes is all we need. You can do more, like you can have 6 of them, but realistically, because we're doing this for a video game, we don't need anything that's like real extravagant or anything like that. Once you have your UV selection done, or your planar mapping done, you can click on the UV editor. Once again, each 3D application is going to have something just a little bit different, so just something to kind of be aware of. So we got that open in the UV editor. The next thing we need to do is we actually need to apply a new Lambert shader, like so. One thing I do want to mention, whenever you do anything for a video game, it's good to delete your history, and this way you have a clean history. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. In Maya, you go to Edit, and you go down to Delete by Type, History. And so you can see that the attribute editor had all these different tabs, and now we're back down to 3. So under Lambert, under the Lambert shader, under Color, I'm going to go ahead and attach that texture map we just made. The very elaborate texture map. So I saved it as a PNG. As we can see, Sam. Very beautiful phone. So right now you're probably thinking, but wait, Jimmy, I don't see anything. Well, I understand that. You'll see it in this view because we actually turned on the texture shader up here for this orthographic view. But inside this window, we never turned it on, so all we have to do is just click on that. And look at that beautiful Sam phone. And right now you're probably thinking, but wait, Jimmy, that looks like crap. I agree. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go into the UV editor. I'm going to actually move this over to the side. You can see this kind of white box. In fact, I'm just going to move that out of the way. So you see these white boxes and everything. These white boxes, where they connect, are actually part of the UV shader itself. And so if we click on one of these faces, we can actually just double click and select that entire selection. So we know this is the top. And I'm going to just start selecting these and moving them out of the way, and I'll figure out where they go here in just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And so we know that this one's the top. And all I'm going to do is just move it over into place, and I'm going to scale it up like so. So one thing that we need to take note is that part of this actually folds over on here onto the side. And so all I need to do is figure out where this is, and I know it's right there where it actually starts creasing. So I'm going to move this right about here, and then I'll move this up just a tad. Oh, you suck. Okay, there we go. So I'll just extend that and then slowly move it right about there. You want to make sure that these don't actually go into the white areas. If they do, then you're going to have this this protruding effect, as I like to call it. So I'm actually going to have to move these up just a little bit. One thing to be very aware of whenever you're using the translate tool, you'll see me using the scale tool a lot in UV texture editors. But the reason for that is if you use the translate tool, is what can happen is you can get basically deforming of the texture map. So right here I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to just move this. I'm like, this is actually going to be the top, but I'm going to use the side because why not? So if I scale this in, let's see, I'm going to scale it in right about there. Let me see, which ones are... Oh, that's why. Okay, so it actually kind of inverted on me. So I'm going to unscale this. I need to actually rotate it where it's about like that, and then I'll scale it down. So there we go. Looks beautiful. So I'm just going to show you this real quickly. I'm going to move it over the Sam, or actually I'm going to move it over this water. This way you can see it. So if you decide that, man, I don't like this UV right here, I'm just going to move it, you'll actually get this weird, if you look right here where the mouse is, as I'm moving this, you get this weird deforming look on the texture map. So that's just something to be kind of aware of in case you're like new to texture mapping and things like that. I know some of you gurus out there are like, yeah, no shit or whatever, but it's just something to be kind of, I'd just say kind of aware of. For this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to try and match these up. They don't have to be exact. I'm not really too worried about that. I just want them to be close. And one of the biggest things I'm trying to do is I'm trying not to get too much of the screen on here. Oh, see, I'm actually protruding into the white. I'm actually going to line these up like so. Mesh that down on my scale tool, and I'll make these match. I'll make these match. Make sure I don't have anything there, and then I'll make sure that these match. So now once I have all these selected, I'm going to scale them down just a little bit. I want this actually to be in the black range. There we go. Yeah, I can live with that. I don't know if I can sleep at night, but I can definitely live with that. So the next thing we need to do is I'm just going to work on the back piece right here. And this is the exact same as the front. So we know that this actually extends out past what the front did. So this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but it shouldn't be too terribly bad. Once again, same principle is you just select this, and I don't want these selected. And all you're doing is just going to move these up like so. And I'm going to go down here. Now I know earlier I told you to be aware of the translate. In this case it's okay because we're moving all of the UVs. We're not moving a select few of them. So that's why I'm actually translating these this time. To get to the middle portions of them, I'm actually going to cheat just a little bit. And you can do this. I mean, it's not something that's going to be like your professor or your boss is going to be like, oh, you suck. You need to die a horrible, painful death. He's not going to do that. I mean, it's just something you can do to kind of like make it a little bit easier. But I'm actually scaling just segments of this. And the reason for this is because when I get to these corners right here, once again, I'm going to scale them and then scale them like so. So as you can see now we have this nice crisp edge, and that's kind of what I was going for. Now some of these edges you can see like right here it kind of disappears and right here it comes in. We'll need to find these UVs, and I'll just click right here. Okay, so these UVs match up right here. Now I know I got this dead on. Yeah, see that's white all the way across, so that one's dead on. Is what we need to do now is find out where this UV is located, and all I'm going to do is just barely move it. Let's see, right. I'm going to move it right about here. I know earlier I said not in the white, but we're trying to get this to match. and it doesn't quite match, so I'm going to move it right about here. And then once again, same thing with this one. We're actually going to zoom in, and we'll just move this up just a little bit where these match. There we go. So I'm not going to do this one yet because I still have to do the sides. Luckily, the sides will be fairly easy. So all I'm going to do is click on face, and then select that whole one. Now, with us looking at this side, we can kind of see the two volume buttons, so we know what's going to be applied to this side over here. Just like this one over here will be for this side, which would be the power button. So I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to scale in. Now, one thing I should be punished for, and I do mean punished hardcore, is I did not tell y'all about the importance of saving. So one thing I'd recommend doing is saving your work frequently, which is Control S. And I'm just going to name this tutorial phone. I don't know. That sounds good. Tutorial phone. Sam phone. Whatever. You can save it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. So under the texture mapping, as you can see, right here we got our volume buttons down here. But they should be up towards the top. That's basically just a simple rotate, like so. Easy. Now, some texture maps, like if we were to zoom in, you would already know that this is, oh wait, that is the top of the phone. Okay, so we can still sleep at night. Sometimes you might run into where the UV map is actually backwards. In that case, all you have to do, you don't want to change the image backwards under the, like if I go in here to into the texture, like the place 2D texture, you don't want to change the coverage backwards or the repeat UV backwards. And the reason why, because when you import this into Unity, I'm not sure about Unreal, but those import settings will not stay. So a lot of times on your texture map itself, that's where you change those values to match up with what you're working with. Alright, so right here, as we can see, the one is kind of protruding. Is what we need to do is we actually need to scale this up, and we need to get it where it's actually moved forward. Nope, still not there. We need to move it forward where it just barely comes up. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in the object mode. It's not quite there. I mean, honestly, if I was your boss, I'd be like, hey dude, that looks like shit. So we're going to have to work with it a little bit more. I'm actually going to move this up. Move it up to right about there. Let's see. Move this back just a hair. Sometimes you can manipulate these, just don't manipulate them too much. If you do, you'll start running into really weird issues. The biggest thing is to make sure that the continuity is continuous and that you're not really messing with that. As you can see right here, this almost matches up. I can actually take this, I'm going to move it forward just a little bit, and I'm going to move it down just a hair. And so now, as you can see, this matches up, but the screen still does not match up. This is where I'll select these down here, move them down just a little bit till that matches up there. And so now we have that. So that looks a lot better. Now we got to work on the bottom. Scroll down, Jimmy. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to move these down, and I'm actually going to move these back about right there. Let's see, do I have the right? No, I don't. Okay, so I need to select this one. This is really the only time you'll see me messing with individual vertices. Normally I wouldn't do this because of the fact that there's so many things that you can easily screw up on and just totally destroy the texture map, and people will just be laughing at you for years to come. They'll be like, hey Joe, you remember that one time you screwed up on the texture map? And you're like, yeah Ron, I remember, shut up. So anyways, that's all I'm doing right here. I need to find these texture maps, or I mean these UVs, and I'm going to go ahead and select these. Right now you're probably thinking I'm a weirdo. That's cool. Everyone's a little weird sometimes. And I'm just going to, oops, wrong ones. Everyone needs to be weird sometimes. It's okay. And so I'm just going to move these, and it is not doing it, so I need to move this one, and I actually need to realign this one, so I'll realign it right about there. And I'm thinking probably right about there. Ah, you bastard. Ah, you bastard. Okay, let's try this again. Move that one right about there. I'm going to move this one over to about here. Then I need to select this one. I actually need to move this one up just a little bit. There we go. Alright, that was fun. Let's see if we can do it again, boys and girls. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to move this one back because I'm actually trying to get this color to match up as close as I can. Let's say probably right about there should be sufficient. And once again, I'm going to have to rework this one. I'm going to rework that one to about there. I'm going to rework this one. Yeah, I guess I'm not going to have that option, am I? Nope, because it sucks to be me. Either way, you get the idea. It's nothing that it's nothing that's going to be too terribly important. But on the bright side, now that we're on this side, now I'll be able to show you what I'm talking about. This is really where UV planar mapping comes into play. Because, oh no, wait, I gotta rotate it. That's my bad. Never mind. Normally is what I would do if, say I rotated it and it still did not line up, is what I'd do is I'd actually create a planar mapping on just these selected faces. So I'd go in here, I'd select the faces, and I'd create my own planar mapping. And then I'd just line everything up from there. In this case, I don't really have to worry about that because it, oddly enough, still lines up. We're going to lose the camera feature, which that kind of sucks. So the easiest way around that, as you can see on here, we have it. And is what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to select these faces like so. Because I'm like, yeah, it looks good, but we can do better. We can do so much better. So I have all these front faces selected. I'm actually just going to go up here to UV. And this is under the modeling toolkit. But I'm going to go down here to planar mapping, and we need to project it from the y-axis. And I'm able to figure that out because this little handle down here, y is up, side is x, and the front is z. Also, I can look at my translate tool. So I'm going to go ahead and hit project, and I'm going to go in here to the UV editor. Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. right now, so I'm getting kind of tired. And then all I'm going to do is just scale this, and I'm going to match it to the model we created earlier, or off the reference image that we created earlier, shall I say. So select the UVs. I'm just going to select here. I'm going to scale these in just a little bit. I don't want to scale them in too much. I do want this up here though, because that's going to give it the look I'm after. I'm going to move these down just a hair. I'm going to move these down just a hair, and then I'm going to move this one right about here. Normally, I cannot stress over this enough. I'm going to keep repeating myself. One, because I'm tired, and two, because it's real important to know that you want to be very careful translating these. While I'm doing it, I'm trying to keep the continuity as even as possible, because right now at the bottom of it, you're probably thinking, oh, Jimmie, that looks perfect. Well, it doesn't quite match up right here. As a game designer, these are things that you want to really keep an eye on, because the internet, they're full of assholes, and I'm sure I'll have people commenting on my YouTube channel as well. But if you compare it to up here, I'm like, this almost matches up. And realistically, to get it to match up, all I got to do is just move it right about here. So, something like this, you can see that it's clearly completely different. And I'll have more advanced tutorials later on. Right now, I'm just trying to give you an idea. This is actually my first tutorial ever. So I just want to make sure that y'all are happy with it. Y'all want me to keep doing it. If you do, hit that like button. Send me an email saying, hey, we love your channel, keep making these, or hey, you suck, kill yourself and die, or whatever. it's cool. I mean, criticism's actually a good thing. If y'all like me, that's awesome. If not, let me know, dude. Seriously. Okay, and my dogs are looking at me funny because I'm talking to myself. Life is great. Okay, so once again, I'm not going to get too Western with this, but I am going to go over a lot of the basic principles of what I'm doing and why I'm doing them. So right here, you can see that we have this weird deforming thing taking place. I'm just going to move this up. And I need to move this one up as well. So now that we have that even, as you can see, that is now even. You're going to have a little bit of discoloration, and that's basically coming in where the side texture maps meet the bottom texture maps. In Photoshop, you can actually take a snapshot of it, and you can blend these in. I'm not really worried about doing that. If y'all want, I'll actually be showing that on how to do that later on in another tutorial video. So, yeah, this is basically the phone. We'll go ahead and delete the image plane. We will go up to, we'll click on the poly modeling tab. We need a center pivot, freeze transformation, edit, delete by type, history, and then we'll hit save, and now your character has a phone that he can use in the video game. And if you wanted to make it where it looked like someone was calling, like you see in Grand Theft Auto, how the phone just kind of let me just show you a quick little animation here, or actually I'll just go into the top view. So if you want it where it's like the phone just kind of bloop, like that pops up, and then you see like someone's calling, like IRS calling you scammer or whatever, it doesn't matter. All you would do would just, you would actually have a texture map in Unity, and it would loop over itself. And that's how you would do something like that. So, let me undo those. So the next thing we'll do is to export your game object into Unity. You'll select the object, and you'll go to File, Send to Unity. You can either click on the selected object you're sending, or if you're wanting to send everything in the scene, you can click on All. It doesn't really matter in this case which one we're sending it to. So what you'll do is then you'll look for your Unity game file. In this case, I'm just going to click on the Asset Store, Assets, and I'll click on where I want to send it. In this case, it'll be 3D models. Now, when you send something out to Unity, it's going to send it out as an FBX. As you can see, there was another project I was working on, which is a Glock, and that is an FBX file. So we'll call this the Sam phone, and we will export the selection. And as you can see, it exported without any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and end the tutorial here. I hope y'all enjoyed. Please, if you like me, let me know. If you dislike me, please hit the dislike button. Let me know I suck. Y'all would be awesome for that. I thank you ahead of time. If you want me to keep doing more, just subscribe to this channel and let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And yeah, I hope to hear from y'all.